Guys, we're in the beautiful peach state of Georgia, my home state, my hometown, Cartersville, Georgia. We flew back. I always said when we hit 100,000 subscribers, that I would release the real video, the full detailed how I got saved at Waffle House at night. Jesus saved me. We're gonna go into the whole detail. We're gonna go to the Waffle House that I got saved at. But I wanted to take you guys through like a life pivotal journey of pivotal aspects of my life. We're at my hometown house right now. I'm gonna take you guys into my hometown bedroom and just kind of show you guys. Yeah, it's just gonna be great. I wanted to take you guys to the places that actually impacted me. The Bible says that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And that means that when you release a testimony into the air, you're actually impregnating the air for that very thing to happen in other people's lives, but with more power through the power of the Spirit of God. Instead of just telling you guys, I wanted to bring you guys to the place where the stuff happened because I believe there's something special about it. Before we get into the video though, check out the shirt. New merch, jesusinthestreet.com. Crack this, not drugs. Go get it. It's my favorite shirt that we have. It's the newest design. We got it in this gold, yellow, and holy monsoon. We're in the middle of a storm with new merch. Crack this, not drugs, baby. Go get it at jesusinthestreet.com before I get swept up in this tornado now. So go get them, jesusinthestreet.com. Support the mission. Let's go check out my childhood bedroom and see where just everything has happened since I've been alive. So I've been in this house like all my life. I feel like when you're young, you can only remember a certain amount of memories, like up to like a certain age. So like this like little baby Bryce, like just chilling on the swing. I've been growing up in this house all my life. I grew up in church. In the South, they call it the Bible Belt. If you talk to most people in the South, most people will say that they're Christian just because they go to church. Church is a big thing in the South. And we always went to church growing up. And then about the 6th grade, I used to play a lot of travel baseball. We stopped going to church as much because of the tournaments. Then when I stopped playing travel baseball as much, we had just already not been going to church. So we stopped going to church. And so I would say in that time period is really where I grew a heart of bitterness towards God. I think one big thing that pulls people away from Christianity is hypocritical attitudes and character towards people that proclaim Christ with their lips, but their life doesn't reflect it. And I felt like when I was growing up, I saw a lot of people in my community that proclaimed Christ with their lips, but their life didn't reflect it. And so my example of Jesus were just people who said they were Christian but didn't live it. And so my brain would say, if that's how people are, then this must be how God is, and God must not be that great. So I actually had this hidden resentment from God. But when I was growing up, all these people thought I was like the biggest Christian ever. Like people would rely on me for faith-based questions because I went to a Christian school, middle school and high school. But deep down, I had this big heart of resentment towards God because of the people that represented Jesus to me. It's like a lot of people compare God to their circumstances, which isn't truth at all. Like if you guys have had bad experiences with the church or with Christians, that's not Jesus. Those are people, and people are sinful. And so people can misrepresent Jesus to people, and a lot of people compare their experiences with the church or with people who claim to be Christians to God, and that's what I did. But I want to encourage you guys, like if you want to meet the real Jesus, don't talk to people who think they know Jesus. If you want to know who Jesus is, go to Jesus yourself, because the Bible says you will seek me and find me when you seek me with your whole heart in Jeremiah 29:13. And so if you really want to know the real Jesus, you don't have to ask other people that you think know Jesus. You can meet the man yourself by having a pure heart of innocence and wholeness and saying, God, I just actually want to meet you right now. I got to get water, bro. I'm so thirsty. You want water? Yeah, you can keep rolling. I don't care. I don't know why my family gets Dasani, dude. Like Dasani's the worst water you can have. Like literally, my girlfriend sent me a picture of the dentist pH scale, and Dasani is literally the worst water you can drink. Luckily, your boy drink Essentia, which is one of the best. It's one of the best. Here's your water, by the way. Thank you. This is my childhood bedroom that I grew up in. This is really the first place I had my first battle with some sort of addiction or some sort of sin struggle. Any pastor, preacher, Christian, any person you see on the street, they've struggled in any way, shape, or form. We live in a sinful world, but Jesus is the answer. He's the author and perfecter of our faith. He's the reason why that I've been set free and many other people have been set free. But I want to show you guys this room. It's like nothing crazy. It's probably messy. I only come in here to shower when I come home. I come from like a country redneck family. So like my grandpa built my bed. He built my desk, like Southern roots. That's just how it was. And I will say, even in the midst of me having resentment and bitterness towards God, my grandfather on my mom's side, and then my dad's mom, my grandmother on my dad's side, they were the biggest influences of my faith. even when I was having doubts of God. Even though I had this resentment and bitterness towards God, I was still curious and had questions, and I would ask my grandma and my grandpa these hard, tough questions about Jesus because I was still curious at the end of the day. Right here in the midst of struggle, I had a lot of times where I was yelling at God and I was cussing at God and I was angry at him with this built up resentment because I had a misrepresentation of Jesus in my brain and not the reality of who he was, because I never went to him to ask who he was. I just looked at other people's lives and assumed that God wasn't truthful and God didn't love me because all these other people that proclaimed Jesus with their mouth, their life didn't reflect it. The way they treated me didn't reflect it. And so these influences, these people that had Christ as their label, influenced me the wrong way, and I just had all this bitterness towards God. I would go into my bathroom and I would look in this mirror and I would literally just cry and weep some nights because I hated how I was living my life. I hated the things I was doing. Deep down, I just had shame and guilt. And that's why I said earlier, like anything that you leave in the dark, you give Satan the license to use against you. And I carried all this shame and guilt around with me. Satan would just eat me alive, and I would come in here and I would cry and I would hate how I was living my life. And then I would just go back and do the same stuff. And it's because I didn't know. I didn't know any other way. Innocent sixth grade, 7th grade, 8th grade Bryce didn't have any other way and didn't know anything else. And so I would go back to the same sin struggles because I had a hole in my heart. And it's the only thing that I knew. And it would fill it for the moment. But then the second the moment was over, the emptiness was right back. And I didn't know where else to go. So I just kept going to that struggle. And then when I got to high school, my dad had an office in our basement and they changed it to my bedroom because we got a dog and I slept down there with the dog. But I'm going to take you guys down there because that's where I feel like I had the lowest point of my faith and my life got developed. So this is the bedroom I grew up in from like my whole high school basically. It was in the 8th grade when I started to have a big spiral of anxiety and depression. I remember my anxiety and depression being like the biggest incurable disease ever. It felt like that was the biggest struggle I had. And it was a secret battle. Like no one knew. At school in the 8th grade, in my freshman year, I felt like I was extremely popular. A lot of people talked to me. I was a people pleaser because I just wanted to feel loved because I had the hole in my heart. So I would act like a different person to everybody. Maybe I'd put someone down behind their back to look better in front of this person and then be a different character for this person because I wanted to feel loved. And then I had the suppression anxiety. I mean, if I pulled up my old Snapchat memories from before December 25th of 2020, it was every night I was taking a picture or a video crying and talking about how much my life was awful. That's when I just struggled with harmful thoughts and thinking about making an irrevocable decision with my life. It was tough because on the outside, I'm a freshman in high school, sophomore in high school. All these people around me looked to me like this Christ figure. I went to a private Christian school. I had a great education there. I loved the school. I was getting these Christian awards at the awards ceremony, but they didn't mean anything to me because I had this deep resentment in my heart. My freshman and sophomore year of high school, one of my granddads got cancer. When he got cancer, my whole family unintentionally, it felt like they put a weight on my shoulders to like make sure Grandy was like locked in on going to heaven. You know, it was like we didn't know where he stood with Jesus, and they were just like, Bryce, like you got to talk to him. I was close with my Grandy, and they were like, you got to make sure that he knows Jesus and knows the gospel. Just visiting him in the hospital wasn't a priority to me. And sharing the gospel with him wasn't a priority to me because I didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. Jesus wasn't important to me. So sharing the gospel didn't have any effect on me. The weight of the gospel was non-existent to me. I kept blowing it off. And there was one night where my dad said, hey, do you want to come visit Grandy in the hospital? And I said, no. It was so that I could go visit Grandy and see him, and I was going to tell him about Jesus and see where he was at. And that night I said no was the night that he passed away. You want to talk about carrying some shame and guilt. Even though you have harbored resentment towards God, you feel like that someone's eternity was your fault because you didn't know where they stood. Even though I wasn't a Christian at the time, like I beat myself up every night. I would just cry and cry and cry because I thought that Grandy wasn't with God and it was my fault, even though I had that harbored resentment towards God. And I just beat myself up for such a long time,
secret, quietly. And there was one day I got done with wrestling practice and I was crying in my car afterwards because I literally carry this weight every day. And I was crying and I was like, God, like, why would you let this happen? Why could this? And I literally thought I heard an audible voice in my car. It felt audible and it was just, he's okay. That's all I hear. So I start freaking out and I call my grandma and I start apologizing to her. This is the grandma, someone who was pivotal in my faith journey when I hated God that I was talking about. She was a big influence in my life, even though I hated God at the time. Called her and I'm crying and apologizing to her that I didn't share the gospel with her husband, Grandy, my grandfather. I was crying and she told me that a few days before he had passed away that she had spent some time sharing the gospel with him and that he had surrendered his life to Jesus. It was so powerful, like thinking about the weight that was lifted off my shoulders. Like I went on TikTok and I made a video talking about the experience I had. And when I went to sleep, I woke up the next morning and 3 million people had seen the video. 90,000 people had followed me on TikTok overnight. And everyone was pressing me about questions about God. And I didn't know a single thing because I didn't have any, I had all this head knowledge because I went to a private Christian school. I had to take Bible classes. I didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. Like I was so flustered and overwhelmed. I tried to fake it for 2 weeks because I felt like it was my responsibility because I wasn't trying to go viral. I wasn't trying to make a video because I wanted to get some views or some followers. Like I was just trying to share my heart and this experience I had. I had never had a supernatural experience like that. And after 2 weeks, I stopped talking about God. I became super selfish after 2 weeks because I didn't have a real relationship with Jesus and it fell through. And the encounter didn't lead to any depth for me. It was just an encounter with Jesus and it was almost like it led to a spiritual high. And then when the feeling went away, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm done with this. I'm tired of it. I was trying to force something that I didn't have because I felt like that people were putting a pressure on me again for their salvation. And I was kind of spiraling into this, oh, I'm responsible for people now. Like people are relying on me. And so I had that encounter and then I made that video and whatever. And then I just kind of went back to living my life and going back into sin struggle and anxiety and depression. Even after that encounter, my life spiraled down even more. And it just felt like I was just becoming more hopeless and more hopeless and more hopeless. It led to a night where I thought it was going to be my last night. And I'm going to take you guys to the most pivotal moment of my faith journey where instead of taking my life, I gave my life to somebody who wanted it. And this is the moment that I just would have never thought in my brain, this place, this destination, I just would have never thought this would have happened. Waffle House got to be the holiest ground I've ever stepped on in my life. And I'm going to take you guys to the Waffle House, to the exact seat that I got saved in. All right, guys, so I'm in the Waffle House that I surrendered my life to Jesus in 3 years ago, coming up on 4 years. It was December 25th of 2020 when I surrendered my life to Jesus. I put my faith and trust in Him. What I'm about to talk about, I feel like is something that a lot of our generation has been riddled with and struggling with for a very long time, mental health issues and struggles. And I want to encourage you guys, like there is a way out, and that way is Jesus. So leading up 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, after that encounter I had with Jesus, and then I let it go, and I was going back in my own life. I hated my cycle of sin that I was in. I had this secret battle of anxiety and depression that I just couldn't get rid of. And there would be nights where I would contemplate my life. On December 25th of 2020, at least I thought December 25th of 2020 was going to be my last day. I had had an awful day. And Waffle House has always been one of my favorite restaurants on the planet. It's open 24/7. Like if Waffle House is closed, that means like the world's in, and it's always open. And I knew it was open on Christmas. I had just told my parents that I was going to get a meal at Waffle House, but in reality, like I'm thinking this is going to be my last meal. I love Waffle House, and no one knew. I had basically set everything up to where after Waffle House, that was going to be it, and then there would be stuff left for the people that cared about me. I came into Waffle House, and it was slam-packed inside Waffle House. I'm talking, this place was bumping on Christmas. It's the only thing open, and people were trying to get food. And since I came alone, I knew it was going to take a while for me to sit down. And so I asked this random guy, I'm like, hey man, if we a party of two, we'll get to sit down faster, I'll pay for your meal. And he was like in his mid-30s, and he was like, yeah, sure. So I got him, we sit down at this table right over there. He starts dumping all his life issues on me, like starts dumping everything that he's going through. He's like, my wife's divorcing me, she's taking my kids, and she's taking all this, and blah, blah, blah. And you gotta think like where I'm coming from. No relationship with Jesus. My life feels hopeless. And now I'm trying to run away from my problems one last time, and I got somebody else dumping their problems on me. Like, it was awful. And I remember just kind of not paying attention to this guy, just eating my chocolate chip waffle on my All-Star Special. Kind of nervous. You can make up for lost time. You can right your wrongs if you get angry at a brother, or you say something that hurts someone, but you can't right this wrong. I'm just thinking, I can't wait to get out of here and get this over with. As he's just going in, just talking, and I'm just not listening, he says one thing that God used to change the course of my destiny. This one phrase this guy said, not even about Jesus, didn't say anything about God. He was talking about his wife, losing his wife to a divorce, and he goes, I love my wife, and she doesn't feel the same about me. There's no growth in a relationship if the love isn't mutual. And when he said that, it was like all of time stopped. And for a split second, all of the head knowledge I had ever learned anything in Bible class, all these Bible verses I learned when I was a little kid going to vacation Bible school at church, little stuff I had heard here and there about Jesus, the real Jesus, time stopped. And like a cinematic film reel, just panning, thoughts in my brain. I'm hearing Bible verse scriptures I've never even read before in my life in my brain. And I'm finally hearing the words and the affirmation that I had searched for in my addictions and in my sin cycles that left me empty every time after I did them. The one thing I had never tried was Jesus. And all I hear is that I love you and that I actually care about you. And I'm sitting in this Waffle House chair with these scriptures popping in my brain. And I realized when that guy said there's no growth in a relationship if the love isn't mutual, I realized the only reason that I hadn't experienced God's love was He really loves me. I just never gave myself the opportunity to love Him back. And a lot of people look at God and they look at it as transactional, and they don't get to experience the real Jesus. Like, God isn't a distant God that just wants to be a genie that answers your problems when you have an issue. He wants to be involved. All those times that I was growing up, He wants to hear how you feel. Like, He wants to be involved in your life. He wants to speak to you. He wants to know the ins and outs. Even though Jesus is all-knowing, He wants to know how your breakfast was. He wants you to ask Him what to wear to school that day, what to wear to work that day. He wants you to ask Him whether to turn left or right when you're just driving around listening to music. It was real relationship, not a cage of rules. I started bawling my eyes out, and this guy was freaking out because he thought he said something that offended me. And I just threw the money down on the table, my cash for the bill, and I walked out. And I got in my truck and I just said, God, if you're real, take away my anxiety and depression. And since December 25th of 2020, I haven't had anxiety or depression. God set me free of my addiction to explicit videos. And that night, instead of taking my life, I gave my life to somebody who wanted it. We feel like our mental health struggles are an incurable disease. And I thought that December 25th was going to be my last night I ever lived. And instead of taking my life, I gave my life to Jesus because He actually wanted it. And He wanted to use me. The very next day, I experienced a freedom I had never felt in any of my sin. I experienced a freedom I had never felt in anything I watched, any people I pleased. And so I just made a video and I was like, guys, I had this encounter with Jesus. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm going to disappear for a few weeks and learn a little bit about this man. I'm going to come back and tell you everything I know about him. And since that day, I've been telling people about Jesus. Telling people about Jesus has never been like a performative thing. It was never about gaining anything from it. When you taste true love and you realize so many people are lovesick and looking for the real thing, and you've got the antidote to people's love sickness, you just want to give it to everybody, you know. So many people get angry at me. People say nasty stuff to me, email me nasty stuff. After I gave my life to Jesus, like, I probably had the roughest year of my life. Everybody thinks once you give your life to Jesus that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. But when you walk in the will of God for your life, like, the enemy is going to try to bring you down and haunt you. The Bible says that the devil's like a roaring lion. He's not a roaring lion. He's like one. He's just a kitty cat in the corner with a megaphone trying to amplify your problems with shame and guilt so that you don't walk in the fullness of who God's called you to be. And I had the roughest year of my life. Getting haunted. I went through crazy rough stuff. There was even a point in time, I'm 17 years old, right after I got saved. I got people sending me threats, threatening my life, sending me my address, telling me that they're going to show up at my house. Like, crazy stuff. I'm 17 years old. I would go around my hometown. People would threaten to beat me up. But I could never get mad because I realized, like, I was just as angry, if not more mad at God for my circumstances. And I realized God never forced the bad stuff to happen to me. But God still got the glory. It's easy to blame God for sin. It's so easy. We don't want to believe in God, but we just like to blame Him for our issues. But when you really meet who Jesus is, you realize that He's not the cause of the sin. He's actually the antidote to it. And He actually wants to heal your heart. And some people's journey in freedom is different. Some people, just one encounter and it changes everything. Sometimes we need help, but the point is Jesus is the answer. And if you're someone that struggles with mental health issues and you're looking for help, my friends that stay here have a 24/7 chat that you can reach out to. They have partnered with a company called BetterHelp, where you can actually receive free counseling, because counseling is expensive, therapy is expensive nowadays. That night, I was going to take my life. Like, I just needed someone to talk to. The human that talked to me was like blaming his problems on me and dumping his issues on me. And 30 minutes before I was going to take my life, Jesus ends up talking to me. Jesus intervened. He spoke to me. And He showed me what real love was. And I'll ever be forever grateful for that. Jesus sits at the edge of your bed every morning, eager to hang out with you. And for 17 years of my life, I overlooked Him every morning, and all He wanted to do was just hang out with me. He's eager to hang out with you. Just ask Jesus to spend time with you, and He's ready. I kind of like imagine Jesus sitting at this table. Like, He's got this table reserved with a name card with your name on it. And people come up, "Hey Jesus, can I sit there?" "No, I'm waiting for my friend. I'm just waiting." Jesus doesn't want anyone else to occupy the seat but you. He just wants to hang out. Always waiting to hear a call. Read a prayer you throw up occasionally. He's ready. I love you guys. I hope this blessed you guys. I pray that you guys experience the same freedom that I did, because I know it's true and real. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. There's freedom in this house, and I believe you can experience freedom through a video like this. I love you guys. See you guys next time.